The silence in a room where life used to linger can sometimes speak louder than any sound. You'd think that death would bring peace, but in my experience, it only leaves an echo, something that gnaws at you when the lights go out. It's the absence of something, a hollow space in the world that wasn't there just moments ago. In a hospital, you're constantly surrounded by that void, but it's when that void lingers too long that you start wondering if it's truly empty. My name's Grant. I'm a 34-year-old paramedic, and I've seen a lot of things, but there's one I can't shake. It happened during a routine call, one of those nights where you think you're prepared for anything, but some things can never be prepared for. I've been on countless runs, picking up bodies from car accidents, overdoses, heart attacks, and the list goes on. Death doesn't scare me anymore. It's part of the job. Sometimes, even when death is present, it feels like something else is in the room with you, something you can't quite touch, but always feel. This story isn't about the body, it's about the feeling that something was left behind, something that I couldn't understand at the time. It was supposed to be a simple transfer, a patient, older than most, but no history that would raise alarms. She was stable, or so we thought. I'd seen her once before, twice, actually coming and going from this hospital. But that night, something felt different. There was a chill in the air, like the room itself knew she wasn't coming back. As we wheeled her bed down the long hallways, the fluorescent lights buzzed softly above us, flickering slightly. The hallway stretched on, an endless corridor of white tiles and bright lights. I felt the silence deepen, thickening with each step we took. It was an unnerving quiet, the kind you feel at 3 a.m., when even the world outside feels asleep. The occasional footstep of a nurse, the whirring of machines, and the soft beeping from other rooms, they all felt too loud in that moment. We arrived at her room, where her family had said their goodbyes earlier in the evening. I looked at the clock on the wall, 3:20 a.m. We had 20 minutes until the scheduled shift change. It was supposed to be a routine task. The nurse on duty had already signed off on her transfer. Her paperwork was filled out. I could hear the faint hum of the heart monitor as I prepared to move her to the gurney. It was the kind of machine that gave off an almost comforting rhythmic pulse, like a heartbeat you could rely on. I'd watched those machines 1,000 times, observing as the steady beep remained constant, sometimes for hours, sometimes days. It had become a silent promise that life would go on, as long as that sound kept filling the room. But that night, the sound felt off. As I bent over to adjust the straps on her gurney, the sound of the heart monitor shifted, a subtle change in rhythm. At first, it was almost imperceptible, a brief skip, then another. The beep grew fainter, more distant, like someone had turned the volume down. The machine's rhythm became staggered, irregular, and then suddenly, it stopped altogether. I froze. In the silence that followed, I didn't immediately check her pulse. I just stood there, staring at the monitor. It wasn't possible, right? She couldn't have passed. She was stable. The nurse had just checked on her, said everything was fine, but something wasn't right. I moved quickly, pushing the thought aside. As I leaned down to check for a pulse, the skin on her neck was cold. Her fingers were stiff. The temperature of her body had dropped so significantly, it felt as though she had been dead for hours. My heart started to race, and panic twisted my stomach into a knot. I pulled my hands away quickly, a wave of nausea washing over me. I didn't want to look at her face, didn't want to acknowledge that she was no longer here, but it was like I had to. I had to make sure that what I was thinking, what I was feeling, wasn't some kind of hallucination. Her face was pale, her lips almost blue. The absence of color in her skin made it so much worse, so final. She was gone. She wasn't just asleep. There was no pulse, no sign of life. I leaned over her body, staring at her closed eyes, trying to ignore the coldness, the heaviness of what I had just discovered. It felt like the room had somehow grown smaller, like her presence, even in death, was suffocating me. I stood there for a long time, unsure of what to do next. I had seen dead bodies before, but this one felt different. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong in the room. Then I heard it, a whisper. It wasn't coming from her. She was gone, that much was certain. It was the softest sound, so faint that it almost felt like a figment of my imagination. "You'll be there when I wake up." My breath caught in my throat. I glanced around the room, half expecting someone else to be there, but the room was empty, save for the woman and me. I moved back to the gurney, my hands trembling slightly. I couldn't tell if the words had been in my head, or if they were real. I had never heard that woman speak like that before. I had spoken to her just hours earlier, but it had only been small talk. There were no deep conversations, no emotional exchanges, but in that moment, I felt like something had reached out to me from beyond. For a second, I almost thought she would open her eyes, that she would sit up and laugh, and say that I was being paranoid, but no, her face remained still, the same as it had been since I first found her. And yet the words haunted me, echoing in my ears. "You'll be there when I wake up." I stepped back from the gurney, swallowing hard. The moment felt endless. I could feel the cold air in the room, heavier now, more oppressive, as if the woman's spirit, or something else, was pressing down on me. I didn't want to admit it, but I felt like I was being watched. I knew what I had to do. I had to finish my job. I had to call in the other paramedics, confirm her death, and move on. But as I went through the motions of filling out the paperwork, I couldn't shake the image of her lifeless face. The whisper was still there, lodged in my mind. The guilt was unbearable. It wasn't until later, after the paperwork was done, after I had handed her over to the morgue attendants, that the full weight of the moment hit me. I had failed her. I kept thinking back to her last words. She had spoken them so softly, so sincerely. "You'll be there when I wake up." But I hadn't been. I hadn't been there when she needed me most. I had failed to be her safety, her protector, and now I was haunted by the thought that I wasn't the one she needed to save her. She had already known, hadn't she? Known that I couldn't do anything for her. She had known. They told me it was natural. The brain doesn't stop functioning immediately after death, but I couldn't stop hearing that whisper, haunting me in the quiet of my apartment. "You'll be there when I wake up." I can't let it go. The thought that she knew, that she was waiting for me, it lingers, echoing in the shadows of my thoughts. It's been years since that night, but I still wake up in a cold sweat, the memory of her words fresh in my mind. There are some things you can't explain, some things that just won't let you go, and maybe I wasn't meant to save her, but every time I step into a room where death has come, I can't help but wonder if the same thing will happen again. If someone else will wait, and I'll fail them too. In places like this, the walls remember, not in any tangible way, but in the way the atmosphere shifts around you, a presence you can't see, but can always feel. The air is thick with memories, and some of them are not ready to be forgotten. A glance down a hall, a sudden shift in the shadows, and you can almost hear whispers that don't belong to the living. Tonight I'm walking through that same old hall. It's late, the nurses are mostly off shift, and only a few patients remain in the ward. The silence is suffocating, the kind that presses against your chest. It's quiet enough to hear the steady rhythm of my own breath, but not enough to drown out the feeling that something or someone is watching. My name's Daria, a 29-year-old night guard here at the Pinebrook Psychiatric Facility. I've been working these late shifts for about a year now, and I've learned to get used to the strange noises and long, lonely nights. People tell me the human mind does funny things when it's isolated, and I used to think it was all in my head. But tonight, I'm not so sure. I've always prided myself on being practical, a woman who doesn't let superstition creep in. But tonight, something about this place, the way it feels, is different. Maybe it's the moonlight leaking in through the cracked blinds, or the fact that the usual hum of the building feels too quiet. I'm used to the quiet, but this feels wrong. I make my rounds the same way I do every shift, but something is off. The usual creaks of the building as it settles are louder tonight. The flickering of the hallway lights seems more erratic. Room 224, which should be empty by now, still has its door cracked open. A small flicker of light spills out, a soft golden hue that doesn't belong in this sterile, unwelcoming place. I stop outside the room. For a second I wonder if I should knock, but that doesn't make sense. I don't knock on the doors of empty rooms. Pushing the door open, I peer inside. The bed is made, the sheets neat, but the light isn't coming from the bulb. It's coming from the small window on the opposite wall, filtered moonlight that casts eerie shadows on the floor. I step inside, my footsteps muted on the worn carpet. I reach for the light switch, but as my fingers touch the switch, a cold chill runs down my spine. There, across the room, in the corner where the light meets the shadow, I see something, or rather, someone, a figure, tall and thin, sitting with their back to me. For a moment, I think it's one of the patients who has wandered in, but I know that's impossible. The ward is locked at night, and only the nurses have keys. The figure remains still, completely motionless, their silhouette unnaturally sharp against the dim light. The hairs on the back of my neck rise as I watch, my breath caught in my throat. My instincts scream at me to leave, but I force myself to step forward, approaching the figure. "Excuse me," I call out, my voice breaking the silence. No response. I clear my throat and try again, louder this time. "Hello, are you lost?" Still no movement. It's not until I take another step closer that I realize something's wrong. The figure doesn't look like a person. It's too thin. The edges of its outline blur and shift, like something that doesn't belong in this world. The moonlight seems to bend around it. I stop in my tracks, paralyzed by the unnatural stillness in the room. I should leave. I should turn around and walk out, but I'm frozen. A voice in my head tells me to run, but another tells me to stay and find out what this is. The figure shifts then, and I flinch, but it's not like a person shifting. It's more like the air itself is moving, like the shadow is folding in on itself, closing in on me. Suddenly, it turns its head. A face, pale, drawn, hollow-eyed, emerges from the darkness. A face that isn't quite human, yet somehow familiar. The skin is waxy, too smooth, like a corpse left to rot in the light. "Daria," the whispering voice comes from its mouth, but I know the voice doesn't belong to this thing. I know it. It's the voice of Mrs. Caldwell, an elderly woman who passed away here last month. She was one of the ward's oldest patients. We all loved her, and she was always so kind, always so sweet. She used to talk to me about the afterlife, about how we all have a time when we must move on. She said she wasn't afraid of death, and she was at peace. I remember her saying that, and I remember thinking she was just an old woman who'd lost her grip on reality. But now, I'm not so sure. "Daria," it says again, the voice thin and dry, the words hanging in the air like smoke. I step back, my heart pounding in my chest. My hands tremble as I try to pull myself together, but it's no use. The figure is getting closer. Its hands stretch out toward me, fingers long and bony, reaching for me. I can't breathe. The last thing I remember is hearing Mrs. Caldwell's voice once more. "Don't be afraid. It's only the beginning." I bolt out of the room. My heart is racing, my pulse pounding in my ears. as I run down the hallway, not stopping until I reach the security office. The monitor flickers before me, showing the empty ward, the same empty ward I had just walked through. There's nothing on the screen, nothing at all. It's as though the entire encounter had never happened. But I can't shake the feeling of that thing's eyes on me, the coldness of its touch, the way Mrs. Caldwell's voice filled my mind. I slammed my fist against the desk, the noise echoing in the empty room. What was that? What was it that I saw? I can't stay here anymore. I can't work this job after what happened. The building is haunted. It's not the walls I should be afraid of. It's the souls that never left, the ones who don't know when to go. Mrs. Caldwell was right. The afterlife isn't something we can explain, but it's real, and it's waiting for all of us, and sometimes it comes back to visit. I left Pinebrook that night, but I can still feel it, that cold hand reaching out to me from the darkness, pulling me back. The silence in the hallway wasn't just empty space, it was full of things unseen, and every time I close my eyes, I hear her voice again. Don't be afraid, it's only the beginning. The sounds of the emergency room have a rhythm, a sort of hum that goes on in the background. It's the steady beeping of machines, the soft clatter of nurses' shoes on tile, the occasional murmur of voices. It's easy to forget the weight of it all until it stops, until the rhythm of life falters, even for just a second, and then you can't help but hear everything, and every noise becomes too sharp, too loud. Tonight, it's too loud. It's that feeling of something about to happen. The air in the room is too thick, too heavy, as if the hospital itself is holding its breath. I know that feeling well. I've been here long enough to understand that quiet moment before chaos hits. But this time, it's different. There's a coldness in the air, something that doesn't belong. I'm Michael, a 36-year-old paramedic who's seen my fair share of things that would make most people's stomachs turn. In the ER, we live in the space between life and death, constantly fighting to pull people back from the edge. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. It's just part of the job. I've worked with the same team for years, and while the chaos of the ER never gets easier, you learn to become numb to it. You learn to focus on the patient, to tune out everything else. But tonight, something is different. Tonight, I can't seem to shake the feeling that something is waiting for me. I can't explain it, but the sense of foreboding lingers in the pit of my stomach, growing with each passing minute. We've just received a new patient, a middle-aged man who came in unconscious after a car accident. His heart rate is erratic, and the damage to his body is severe. We move quickly, hooking him up to the machines, attaching the IVs, doing everything by the book. The ER is always busy, always a blur of activity, but tonight, the air is thick with something else. It's as if the walls are closing in around me, pressing against my chest. I try to focus, to follow the protocol, but the feeling won't leave me. Every time I glance up, I catch a shadow moving in the corner of my eye, a flicker in the periphery of my vision. When I look directly at it, it's gone, but it's there. I can feel it. The patient's condition worsens, his breathing shallow and labored. We're fighting for every second, and I don't have time to think about the shadows, not yet. I press my focus on the patient, pushing everything else aside. It's only when the patient flatlines that I finally look up. It's a familiar sound, the flat, monotonous beep of the monitor, but tonight, it feels different. The silence that follows is oppressive, thick and suffocating, and for a moment, I feel like I can't breathe. The room is too quiet. The other medics move quickly, but my mind is frozen. I grab the defibrillator paddles, my hands shaking as I charge them up. I know what I need to do. I've done it 1,000 times before. But tonight, something feels wrong. I can't explain it, but it's like the room is holding its breath, waiting for something. I place the paddles on the man's chest and deliver the shock. There's a slight jolt as his body spasms, but the heart monitor stays silent. I try again, charging the paddles. The room feels colder now. I glance at my colleagues, but their faces are blurred, distant, as if they're not quite real. My heart starts to race, my hands trembling as I place the paddles on the patient's chest once more. And then a whisper, "Michael." I freeze. It's soft, barely audible, but it's there. A voice, not from anyone in the room, not from the patient. The voice is coming from somewhere else, somewhere deeper, and I feel it, like a presence behind me, right next to me. I spin around, my heart pounding, but there's no one there. I don't know what happens next. Time stretches and warps, and all I can hear is the beep, the pulse, the breath of the patient lying motionless in front of me. The voice lingers in my mind, growing louder, but I still don't know who or what it belongs to. The defibrillator shocks again and again. The room grows colder, the lights above flickering, the shadow in the corner of the room more distinct. And then finally, something happens. The patient gasps. It's a shallow breath, but it's enough. The heart monitor flickers back to life. His pulse returns, weak but steady, but I can't shake the feeling. The voice is still there. It's still whispering my name. I turn to look at my colleagues, but they're focused on the patient, on the work. I open my mouth to say something, to ask if they heard it too, but no words come out. The voice grows stronger, more insistent. "Don't let him go." It's a command now, a forceful whisper that rattles my bones. I freeze again, my hands trembling. The words don't make sense. He's alive, he's breathing, he's back, but the room is closing in. The shadows stretch, their shapes unnatural, and for the briefest moment, I see them, figures standing at the edge of my vision, waiting for me to turn back, waiting for me to make the choice. I don't know if I'm still in the room, or if I've left it. I don't know if the patient is still here, or if I've been chasing shadows this whole time. But as I stare at him, at his once lifeless body now alive again, I realize that I'm not sure which of us has truly returned. The rest of the night passes in a blur. The patient stabilizes, and we're able to get him transferred to ICU. My hands stop shaking, my heart slows, but the voice lingers in my mind. I can't shake it. I don't know what happened in that room. I don't know if it was the stress, the exhaustion, or something else entirely. But the whisper still haunts me. Every time I close my eyes I hear it. The voice, soft but unmistakable, calling my name. It's still with me, and I wonder, with a sick twist in my stomach, if it ever will stop. Don't let him go.
Rooms like this don't get much attention. In the back corner of the hospital, where the lights flicker and the air feels stagnant, it's easy to forget that they even exist. This part of the hospital has been here longer than most of us have been alive, and there's a certain heaviness to it, a sense of history that never quite lets go. No one comes down this hallway unless they have to. The patients who end up here, well, they're not the ones people talk about. They're the ones forgotten, tucked away in rooms like 314, where time seems to stop. The sounds from the rest of the hospital fade to a dull murmur, leaving only the occasional groan of the building as it settles. It's the kind of place you avoid, if you can. But tonight, I can't avoid it. I'm Sarah, a 42-year-old nurse, who's worked in this hospital for over 15 years. I've seen a lot of things: sick children, elderly patients slipping away, trauma victims clinging to life, but nothing ever quite prepared me for the quiet weight of this place. I've always been drawn to the stories that linger in the hospital's halls, the ones that no one talks about, the patients that fade into obscurity. But tonight, as I walk down this familiar, dimly lit hallway, I have the creeping sense that something is waiting for me, something I've overlooked for far too long. I feel it now, deep in my gut, an unsettling pull towards room 314. It's as though I'm being called there, drawn by some invisible force that I can't explain. As I approach the door to room 314, I feel my heart begin to race. The hall is unnervingly quiet, the usual hustle and bustle of the hospital muted by the distance. I reach for the door handle, and the moment my fingers touch it, I feel an odd sense of reluctance, as if the door itself is unwilling to open. But I push forward, twisting the handle and stepping inside. The room is dimly lit by a single flickering light above the bed. The air is thick, carrying the faint smell of disinfectant mixed with something older, dust, decay. There's a faint buzzing sound, and the hum of the fluorescent light seems too loud in the otherwise silent room. The window is cracked slightly open, allowing the sound of wind rustling through the trees outside to drift in, but even that feels distant. And then I see her, sitting in the bed, her eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. She doesn't move, doesn't blink, just stares. The sight of her is jarring, unsettling. Her skin is pale, her hair thin and tangled, and she's wearing an old hospital gown, the fabric worn and faded. I've never seen her before. I know all the patients in this wing, but this woman, she doesn't belong here. I step closer to her, my breath catching in my throat. Something about her presence feels wrong, like she's not supposed to be here, not supposed to exist. The quiet in the room is oppressive, and as I stand by her side, I realize that the woman hasn't moved an inch since I entered. She hasn't even acknowledged me. I reach out, gently placing my hand on her shoulder. Her skin is cold, unnaturally cold. I pull my hand away, startled, and glance at the medical chart hanging at the foot of her bed. But there's nothing, no name, no medical history, nothing, just a blank space where her information should be. "Who are you?" I whisper, the question slipping out before I can stop it. The woman doesn't respond, her eyes fixed on the ceiling, her body as still as a statue. A sudden chill rushes through the room, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. I turn, half expecting to see someone standing behind me, but the room is empty. My pulse quickens, and I feel that same heavy sense of dread creeping over me again. I step back, glancing at the door. I'm about to leave when I hear a voice, soft and raspy, just a whisper, "Please don't leave me." I freeze. The voice is faint, barely audible, but unmistakably coming from the woman in the bed. I turn back to her, my heart hammering in my chest. "What did you say?" I ask, my voice trembling. The woman's eyes move just slightly, and I see something in them, something desperate, something pleading. But then they slide back to their vacant stare at the ceiling. I swallow hard, trying to steady my breath, but the air feels thick, suffocating. "Please, don't leave me," she repeats, her voice weaker this time, like a breath fading away. My mind races. I want to call for help, to get someone else in here, but I can't seem to move. I feel rooted to the spot, paralyzed by an unseen force. There's a deep, aching sadness in her words, something that tugs at my heart. I can't explain it, but I know in that moment that this woman, this forgotten patient, is not here by accident. I lean in closer, my breath catching in my throat. "Who are you?" I ask again, my voice barely above a whisper. Her lips move, but no sound comes out. "Wanted Sate." I press my ear to her lips, straining to hear her words, and then it hits me. Her breath is cold, colder than anything I've ever felt, like the chill of a grave. In that moment, I understand. She's not alive. She's not really here. I step back, my heart racing, my legs shaky. I don't know how I managed to leave the room, but I do. As I close the door behind me, I glance back once more at the dim hallway. For a moment, I swear I see the woman standing in the doorway, her figure silhouetted against the faint light of the room. But when I turn around, she's gone. I never speak of it again. No one else remembers her. There's no record of her in the hospital system, no chart, no name. She is nothing but a whisper in the dark, and sometimes, in the quiet of the night, I can still hear her voice, faint and distant. Please don't leave me.
Some places are meant to be forgotten. This hallway is one of those places, hidden behind newer wings. It's a corridor that few visit, unless there's no other choice. The old hospital, now overtaken by the newer, more modern structure, still carries the remnants of an era long gone. The flickering lights make it feel as though the very building is gasping for breath. In the silence, the creaks and groans of the floorboards are louder than they should be, and I can't help but feel as though I'm being watched, even when no one's around. Tonight, something feels different. As I walk down this forgotten hallway to room 409, the weight of its stillness presses against my chest. I'm not supposed to be here, no one is, but there's a pull, something that drags me toward it, and despite the chill in the air, despite the unease creeping along my spine, I can't ignore it. I'm Michael, 38 years old, and I've been a paramedic for almost 15 years. In my line of work, I've seen a lot of things: tragedy, violence, fear, and the strange quiet of death. But it's the moments in between, the small, unsettling things that stay with you long after the chaos settles. It's those moments that linger in the back of your mind, crawling under your skin when you're alone. The psychiatric wing of the hospital always gave me a strange feeling. It's not the place where you find peace. It's where you find the remnants of broken minds. I used to avoid this part of the hospital. I've been through this wing countless times, but it's the quiet, the feeling of being watched, that always unsettles me. Tonight, it feels heavier. I've been assigned to check on an incident down this hall, but as I reach room 409, I feel something I can't quite explain, a sense of inevitability. The door to room 409 is slightly ajar, and the air in the hallway seems to grow colder the closer I get. I hesitate for a moment before pushing it open, the sound of the door creaking on its rusty hinges breaking the silence. Inside, the room is dim, the only light coming from the flickering bulb above. It's cold, and the smell of antiseptic mixes with something else, something sour, like mildew. There's a figure standing in the corner of the room, a woman, motionless, her back turned to me. Her posture is unnervingly stiff, like she's been standing there for hours, unmoving. I can't see her face, but I can sense her presence, as though she's aware of my every move. "Hello," I call out, my voice louder than I intended, breaking the oppressive quiet. She doesn't respond, doesn't even acknowledge my presence. My heart races as I step further into the room, but the feeling of being watched only intensifies. The silence feels suffocating, and for a moment, I wonder if I've wandered into the wrong place. But no, I know this is the room I'm meant to check. "Hey," I say again, my voice trembling slightly. "Are you all right?" Still, nothing. I take a step forward, my boots creaking against the floor. As I get closer, I see that her hands are clasped tightly in front of her, and her fingers are white with tension. She's standing perfectly still, as if frozen in place. I'm about to speak again, when I notice something strange. Her reflection in the window. It's not the same as the woman standing in the corner. In the window, her reflection is smiling, but the woman in the corner is not. The reflection's eyes are wide, unblinking, and the smile that stretches across her face is too wide, too twisted. My breath catches in my throat. I step back, instinctively glancing over my shoulder to make sure I'm still alone in the room. But I can't shake the feeling that something is very wrong. I move towards the reflection, unable to look away, and as I get closer, the reflection shifts.
The woman in the corner is no longer just standing still. Now, she's moving, slowly. Her head turns toward the window, her eyes lock with mine, and the smile on her reflection grows even wider. I stumble back, my pulse pounding in my ears. "Who are you?" I manage to whisper, though the words don't feel real. The woman's lips move, but no sound comes out. Her reflection in the window, however, whispers something in return. "Don't leave me." I freeze, a cold sweat breaking out across my back. The voice, so faint, so eerie, sends a chill through my entire body. The reflection in the window continues to smile, its eyes wide, unblinking, but the woman in the corner is still. My heart races, and I feel dizzy, lightheaded. The room seems to be spinning around me, the air thickening, pressing down on me. My breath comes in short gasps, my mind racing. The woman's reflection doesn't just stare anymore, it grins. But what I don't realize until it's too late is that the woman in the corner isn't smiling. She's staring at me. Her eyes are full of fear, full of pleading, as if she's trying to warn me. I can't take it anymore. My legs move before my brain can catch up, and I rush out of the room, the door slamming behind me. I take a deep breath, leaning against the wall, trying to steady myself, but the feeling doesn't go away. The feeling that I wasn't alone in that room, that I was being watched, not by the woman standing there, but by something else, something far older, far darker. I don't go back to room 409. The memory of that reflection haunts me, the image of the woman's smile, twisted and wrong, lingering in my mind like a shadow. I never tell anyone about what I saw. It's as if the room itself is cursed, and I can't shake the sense that something in that room doesn't belong. The woman, the reflection, the feeling of being watched, they all stay with me, long after I leave the hospital. Sometimes, late at night, when the silence is at its heaviest, I still hear that whisper, "Don't leave me," and I know, deep down, that I never truly left.